one bestseller. So you don't have to be a school leader to have leadership qualities.
Collectively, both Tammy Taylor, principal of Great Falls Elementary, and Dr. Sheka Houston, principal of Chester Middle School, have 40 years of service in education. They have learned the need in their community, and they plan to
serve all children in all communities. And one of the things that we enlighten people about in our professional development with literacy is that sometimes it's hard for children to connect to text because they don't see themselves in text. Providing that culturally relevant literature for students, and that's not just African American students, that's all students. Every student at every school should be able to see themselves in a book, in a text, to be able to connect with it.
Surviving pandemic education together in Chester. R.E.A.L. Jackson, CN2 News.
Again, their goal is to help connect educators, parents, community members, and authors each week to help better navigate the pandemic. To learn more about Create and Educate LLC, simply follow them on Facebook or at their website at createandeducate.com.
Create and Educate held their first personal event after a year of completely virtual events. The organization started during the pandemic, and their goal was to create a way to educate students, teachers, and families virtually. During their Lunch and Learn event, teachers, university experts, leaders, and educators speaking about ways to prepare students since the pandemic.
It has been very difficult. Some teachers have decided to leave the profession, as well as leaders. So we know that education is something that all of our children need. We want to be able to build resilience in our leaders and our teachers so that our education system will be resilient as well.
We needed to provide the space for some dialogue on how we move forward from here and how we can shift where we are in education so that as we move forward, we're moving forward and we are not just trying to do school as usual, but truly looking for some new and innovative ideas for what's going to take us to that next level.
Create and Educate also celebrating its 1-year anniversary.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Let me make sure my volume is right because I hear feedback. Thank you all for joining us. I am Dr. Sheka Houston, and welcome to the R.E.A.L Academy, where we are providing real solutions, practical solutions for anyone that is working with children. Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning, Sheka, and good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. Welcome, and thank you guys for joining us so much. We want to say good morning to all of you who have not thought it robbery, as Principal Hurt said, to join us and be with us this morning. So thank you so much for being a part of our morning PD. We want to say good morning to each one of you, but we want to say thank you so much to Principal Hurt, who got us started this morning and provided us with some amazing tips for that mid-year pivot. We're so excited to have everybody on. Good morning, Principal Kafele. Thank you so much. We thought it would be a really good way to allow Sheka to feed through to the different media and allow you guys to see some of those things that we usually are talking about that Create and Educate represents for us as a company. So we're not going to prolong, but we're going to go on and get started. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And we want to continue this morning with a discussion that we have had that's kind of been ongoing for a few weeks about the R.E.A.L framework that we have on building and creating a culture and climate of excellence in your school. This framework is a part of our book. So if you haven't reserved your copy of It Doesn't Have to Be Lonely at the top, please be sure that you do so. We have gone through the first 2 phases already, and we're going to share those phases with you. But we want to talk about just briefly why there are 3 phases and just encourage everybody who is listening. if you want to work on the culture and climate at your school, we don't want you to feel like you have to be so overwhelmed and you have to do everything all at once, because sometimes that isn't possible. And if you're in a situation where you've inherited a school where the climate is toxic and your culture doesn't lend itself to just being able to get in and get that work done all at once, we've broken this down into phases. And these are phases that we have implemented in our own school. So we are providing you with practical tips on how to make that a reality in your school. And this, I think, fits perfectly and aligns to what Principal Hurt is talking about this morning with making that pivot at the middle of the year, because it's not too late. Even if your data in the winter didn't say what you wanted it to say, as he told us this morning, now is the time to make that pivot. The same is true for if you want to work on getting your culture and climate to a healthy space. You can start that at any point. So just be mindful. And again, if you haven't reserved your copy of the book, this framework will be found in the book. Sheka, you want to get us started? Or you want me to go through those first two phases? For sake of time, I thought,
we can go ahead and start. So as Tammy stated in previous broadcasts, we did go over phase 1 and phase 2, and Tammy will tell you our rationale behind having the 3 phases. But as Principal Hurt stated this morning, this time of the year where you're going into second semester, this is a great time for a reset, and not only just with your data, but also with what we're talking about this morning, school culture. And the first thing that is on our door of our resilience framework is respect, because if you don't have that, if you haven't established that with your staff members, your parents, and your students, you can't get to the other parts of the framework, which are essential for you to be able to move the academic needle that Principal Hurt talked about this morning. So with respect, one of the things that you definitely want to do with your staff, and something that I did around this time of year as a principal, you want to definitely have buy-in from your staff members around your vision. So now this is the time of year, even though we're at the middle of the year, where you're actually planning for next year. So you're looking at that data that Principal Hurt talked about. You're seeing, okay, an assessment of what worked first semester, what didn't work. What do I need to tweak? What parts of the vision need to be adjusted? And I would always have a vision meeting at the end of each year to make sure that my staff had buy-in to what was happening or what was planned for the next year. Because if you don't provide a place for staff members to add their voice, what it's going to look like is, oh, well, she's going to do it all. Let her do it. And you cannot move the academic needle. You can't run a school. You can't do anything by yourself. You need that buy-in from the staff, but you also need it from your parents and from your students. So you definitely need a communication plan as well.
And just bearing in mind, as Sheka said, one of the things about respect is you have to make sure that respect is reciprocated. Like, you, as a leader in your school building, command a certain level of respect just because it's positional. However, you have to lead in such a way that respect that you show and demonstrate to your staff, your students, and your parents is reciprocated back to you, not because they have to do it, but because you're worthy of that respect. And as Sheka said, respect is foundational to every other aspect of what we will do. And just to give a little background on those 3 phases, beginning the work is what you're going to do in that first phase. And Brunert and Whitaker have some resources that are amazing that can help you with getting started when you're looking at your culture and climate and trying to make that something that will yield what Principal Hurt talked about this morning, the academic needle moving in the right direction. So just be mindful that as you go through each one of those phases, because phase 2, again, after you've gotten started, is where you really put in some of that maintenance where you're assessing what's going on and you're making sure that things are going as you guys have planned. Because as Sheka said, this isn't just about you. This is about your team, and your team being the school, your parents, your students, and your staff. So once you have that operating the way that you want it to, and that might take some time. Again, that work that Gruner and Whitaker do, you can see in there how that looks. But once you have it where you want it is when you go into this third phase that we're talking about today, where you're kind of not cruising, but you're heading in that direction so that everything kind of, as Sheka said, operates like this well-oiled machine so that everything is a part of the excellence that you want your school to be, which leads us to the E.
Yes, which
is excellence.
Right, excellence. And no one wants a school where you're not operating from a level of excellence. And the excellence needs to first be seen from the leader. You have to conduct yourself and operate from a realm of excellence by making sure that you're responsive. That's one of the biggest things that I hear. And I was even in a school last week where I heard someone talking about a principal who didn't respond to a parent, who didn't respond to an email. And, you know, they really ran the principal down. And I felt bad for that principal because I've been in the seat before and I know how, you know, hard sometimes it is to respond to the thousands of people that you are, you know, getting emails from, but you have to figure it out. You have to figure out a way to be able to do that, even if you are sitting down and giving yourself a planning period so that, hey, I need to check these emails. If you may not have to put like a lot of lines, it could be like a check mark, acknowledging the fact that you received the email if the response isn't really required, but just that you got it. But people need to know that you are attentive, that you're responsible. The leader first has to demonstrate excellence so that everyone else knows that this is the precedent set for this school. The staff members will know how to operate in excellence. The parents will understand where you're coming from as you operate in excellence and what you want to transcend down to the students, and that your students know that in my school with CMS, at CMS, we operate from a level of excellence. And one thing that I would always communicate to my students on my town hall meetings, CMS, I see you. What do you see? Your answer should always be greatness. And this is where we operate from in all things. That's my expectation. That should be the expectation for yourself. So that has to be the precedent set for your school and communicate it to everyone else, and they know how to operate in that level of excellence.
Yes, absolutely. I love that spirit of excellence, Principal Hurt, because really that's what we're seeking. And that's what our goal is, because when you set those expectations and the expectation is excellence, what we've discovered is that's what you get. People rise to the occasion. And one of the other things that is really important about the information that Sheka has just shared is setting that standard. The standard has to be set. Now, one of the things that I think helps us to be that model, Principal Hurt gave this advice many, many years ago. He was talking about creating an instructional plan for yourself as the leader so that you can devote quality time to being in those classrooms and seeing that excellence is taking place instructionally in your building. So what I did when I created that plan is I filled in the rest of the day. I filled in the rest of the day so that I didn't miss emails, so that I was able to respond to any reports that were due, any of those housekeeping things that have to happen that can kind of bog you down if you don't make that space for getting into the classrooms. That became a part of that instructional plan. So that tool is very, very helpful. And again, that's advice that is like in the beginning stages of when Principal Hurt starts his conversation with you.
Definitely, Tammy. And sharing your plan, because I would always plan like the day before and say, this is my to-do list. I would have a week's plan, the next day plan, share it with your teachers. That helps them learn how to be organized. And I even shared it with my students that, hey, even I have to organize and plan my day. This is how you can do that, because a lot of times we take for granted that, teachers know how to do that well, or that children know how to do that well. You have to be taught how to do those things. I had to be taught how to do those things. So I'm glad you brought that up. The next part of our acronym is appreciate. And you have to show that, you appreciate what your staff is doing, what your students are doing, especially if you do have high expectations, because usually what you're requiring from people is a lot. So not only are you doing a lot, but you're expecting a lot. And so when those things happen, you want to show people, hey, I appreciate the work that you're doing every day. And I have seen a lot of posts and memes and different things where, sometimes teachers want a little more than the slogan type things with, the bag of chips or something. And this goes back to what we talked about from the beginning, that level of respect and allowing teachers to voice their opinions and their concerns. So what you want to find out from the beginning from your teachers: how can I show you that I appreciate you? Because what you have in your mind may not be what they're expecting. So if they would prefer to have maybe a comp time pass, or, not to be looked upon a certain way for wanting some type of a self-care day or something, find out from your staff what they consider to be things that will show them you appreciate them. Don't just assume. So you definitely have to show that appreciation. And I would also ask my students, what are ways that you want to be celebrated for things? Because there's nothing like receiving something. And I'm a gifts person. That's part of my love language. I do like gifts. So it's nothing like receiving something you don't want. So make sure that you are, finding out through your communication plan how people want to be appreciated. That's something simple.
Yes, and as Sheka said, that really means a lot. When you give people what they want, that
Right.
means a whole lot. And I know sometimes as leaders, we get to that place where people should just appreciate anything that you're getting that you didn't have to pay for. But we can't really take that position, because when you ask people what they want and you give them what they want, then it makes everybody happy. However, what I've discovered is sometimes when you ask what a person would like to show them how much you appreciate them, it really isn't always something that is something you can purchase. Like, my staff loves a jean pass. They like to be able to wear jeans to school.
Mm-hmm.
They like a handwritten note that says, I really appreciate you. In my updates every week, I make sure they understand how much I appreciate what you're doing. I know I cannot get this work done by myself. I need you, and I appreciate what you're doing, every part of it.
Right.
And that makes people, I think that helps people to understand exactly how much we do appreciate them.
Exactly, Tammy. And the next part of the acronym is legacy. And there, as an educator, as a leader, you definitely want to leave behind a legacy. You want people to remember something about your journey and your leadership. And I even explain what a legacy is to my students, because you, the students, are also leaving behind a legacy. What do you want people to remember you for or about? And as the leader of the school that I left, I feel like I left behind a legacy where we were able to shift the culture at that school. The school was that school, as Mr. Ken Williams talks about in his video, in the community. And we were able to shift some of that thinking about our school by the way that we operated in excellence, by our expectations, and by moving our report card grade level up 2 grade levels in 1 year. The mindset started to shift in the students as well as the staff, and the community members. So I feel like that was a great legacy to leave behind for the school and for the teachers and students to continue as they continue to try to move the academic needle at the school and continue to grow.
Yes, a legacy, guys, of course, is something that's being transmitted or received. And as Sheka said, you want to pass that torch and you want that legacy to be that you've led a successful school, that you're passing on excellence. So when that next principal comes in, they walk into that spirit of excellence and then they put their spin on it. Like, you take the school from here and move it in the direction that you would have it to go, working with that staff. So legacy is an important aspect of creating that culture of excellence in your school.
Definitely. And I like what Josh stated, leave it better off than when you got there, because the mindset should always be a growth mindset. The mindset should always be growth for anyone to follow you. When you're leaving out, it should just continue to build from where it was.
And you definitely don't want your legacy to be that you came to a school, disrupted the culture, and left them in a bind or just this complete messiness that sometimes happens.
Exactly. And the last part of our acronym here is literacy, which is something that Tammy and I are very passionate about. Principal Hurt was talking about data in his presentation right before us. And a lot of times we do as leaders spend a lot of time focusing on reading academic achievement because it impacts students in every area of learning. Making sure that students are reading well, that they're good readers, that they understand what they're reading and comprehending what they're reading is so important. In society, literacy rates impacts our crime rate, it impacts healthcare, it impacts unemployment, and just your overall quality of life. So we want our children to be great readers, and that's why Tammy and I, with our work, are very passionate about making sure that students have access to culturally relevant text. That was one of the things that I was very intentional about as a leader. Every classroom in my building had culturally relevant text where students could see themselves, where students saw images that represented them. And again, it wasn't just African American students because I'm African American. I looked at every demographic in my school and I ordered books to represent every student at the school because that is important. We also have a SEL program that's built around literacy, building relationships with books. And we also provide professional development on literacy. And colleges have even admitted that they have not done the best job of preparing teachers to teach children how to learn how to read. So we fill in those gaps in a lot of schools that we work with.
And I think that Sheka has covered literacy very well. That is what undergirds the work that we do. And we're at our time because Principal Kafele is on, and we want you guys to hop on over and join him as we will to continue this learning this morning. So thanks again, Principal Hurt, for getting us started. We hope you guys have enjoyed what we brought to you today, and we want you to join us over on Principal Kafele's platform for the virtual R.E.A.L.L Academy this Saturday morning.
Yes, thank you all so much for joining us. And if you all would like, we have a partnership with R.E.A.L.L Inc. and Dr. Gil Nome from the Harvard Medical School, where he has written a grant. We're able to give out books that he has written, the 10 Big Bets on belongingness that helps students. So if you go to our website and fill out the contact form, if you're a leader or on the leadership team at your school, we can send you a free copy of that book. EduMonitor, as you see at the bottom, is also one of our official sponsors. These are people who believe in our work and have invested and partnered with us. So if you need resources for math, where your students may have fallen behind in math. A lot of times, like I said, we focus a lot on reading, and those reading scores go up. But then when we look at math, it's lagging a little bit. So if you need math resources, we have those for students from pre-K all the way up to 5th grade. So if you fill out that contact form, we can get you the information on purchasing those books. And that's for parents or educators, anyone who your child might need help with math. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Please join us over on Principal Kafele's page for his academy next. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Rest of your day. Bye.
Bye-bye.